This story follows a girl named Nancy Adams who travels from the U.S. to a remote beach in Mexico because her mother once visited that same place while pregnant with her. And after her mother's death from cancer, this trip becomes something personal for Nancy, almost like unfinished business. She does not even know the name of the beach, so she shows an old photo of her mother to a local man who recognizes it and drives her through the jungle to a quiet, nearly empty shore. Her friend was supposed to come with her, but drank too much the night before and never woke up, so Nancy arrives alone. Only 2 surfers are already in the water. The man who dropped her off asks how she plans to leave later. She says she will take an Uber. He does not understand what that is, but smiles and leaves. Nancy grabs her surfboard and goes out to the waves, where the 2 surfers talk with her while waiting for big sets. She tells them she is from America. They say Americans rarely come here, and when she asks about danger, they mention 2 rocks that disappear with the tide and dangerous jellyfish. Soon the waves rise, and all 3 surf together for a long time, with Nancy clearly enjoying every moment. She later returns to shore to call her sister, but her father answers and tells her to come home and continue medical school, which she quit after her mother died. He says her mother was a fighter and would not want this, and Nancy replies that even fighters still leave. The call ends quietly, and Nancy goes back into the ocean. As evening approaches, the 2 surfers decide to leave, but Nancy stays behind for one more wave. After they go, the ocean feels strangely still. She senses movement under her board, then dolphins leap from the water, and she follows them farther out. That is when she notices a massive dead whale floating nearby, with birds covering it. Another wave comes and she starts surfing again, but suddenly something smashes into her from below, throwing her violently into the water and separating her from her board. She barely manages to pull herself back up, but something grabs her leg from beneath and the water fills with blood. Nancy forces herself toward the dead whale, the closest solid object, while whatever attacked her continues to chase. She climbs onto the whale just in time. Her leg is badly torn and bleeding heavily, so she tightens it as best she can, using her medical knowledge to slow the blood loss. She looks toward the shore and sees the 2 surfers driving away, screaming and waving for help, but they do not see her. And in that moment, Nancy is completely alone, trapped on top of a dead whale in the middle of the ocean, with a deadly presence still moving below the surface. Nancy now understands the situation clearly. If she goes back into the water, the creature below will kill her. There is no one nearby, and night is only a few hours away. She scans the area and notices 2 possible escape points, some small rocks barely sticking out of the water on one side, and a floating buoy on the other, chained to the seafloor for measuring water levels. Then she sees it, a massive great white shark moving straight toward her, the same one that tore her leg. It crashes into the dead whale, trying to reach her. Nancy immediately jumps into the water and swims for the rock. The shark follows, but she manages to pull herself onto the rock just before it reaches her. A wounded bird is already there, unable to fly because one wing is damaged, making it another prisoner of this place. Nancy's leg is badly torn, so she removes her earrings and uses them like stitches to close the open flesh, crying in pain, then ties her jacket tightly around it to slow the blood loss. Darkness settles in. She spots her surfboard floating nearby and thinks she might be able to get it. Not seeing the shark, she carefully enters the water, moves toward the board, then suddenly sees the shark charging at her. She scrambles back onto the rock, her leg screaming with pain. She notices a drunk man lying on the beach. She yells, waves, and gestures for help. He hears her and walks over. She points at her bag and signals for him to call someone. Instead, he steals her phone and money, slings the bag over his shoulder, and starts leaving. Then he spots her surfboard and goes into the water to take that too. As he brings it back, the shark attacks and kills him in front of her. Now Nancy realizes she has only 6 hours left. When high tide arrives, this rock will disappear underwater. Then she has nowhere left to stand.
Not long after, the two surfers from the previous day return and start coming toward her. Nancy screams for them to stop, warning them about the shark. They laugh it off, and in that exact moment, the shark strikes, dragging one of them under. The other man rushes desperately toward Nancy, knowing the rock is his only chance. He reaches her hands, she grips him, and just as she tries to pull him up, the shark takes him too. In seconds, all hope is gone again. Now only 30 minutes remain before the tide rises. Nancy studies the shark's movement and realizes she has about 30 seconds in the water before it reaches her. She notices a floating helmet with a camera attached near another rock that is barely above water. She swims for it, but fails to grab it in time. The shark surges toward her, even climbing onto the rock, forcing Nancy to fall. Sharp stones and underwater plants trap the shark long enough for her to escape back to her original rock. She finally gets the camera and records a message explaining about the dead whale and the shark, believing she accidentally came between the shark and its food. Then she leaves messages for her father and sister, telling them she loves them and that she is not alone, showing the injured bird beside her. She promises her father that she will try to reach the buoy and that she will keep fighting, just like her mother taught her. She releases the camera into the water so it can drift toward shore. Before preparing for her final attempt, she gently fixes the bird's dislocated wing as best she can and places it on a piece of her broken surfboard, pushing it toward land.
Now Nancy has only minutes left. The water is rising fast, and the rock will soon disappear. The buoy in front of her is her only chance. It is about a minute away, and the shark will reach her in 30 seconds, but there is no other option. As the water covers her feet, she notices a large group of jellyfish floating nearby. She remembers how the shark was hurt earlier by sharp underwater plants and realizes the jellyfish can protect her. She jumps into the water. The shark rushes at her. Exactly 30 seconds later, it reaches her, but by then she is surrounded by jellyfish, and the shark is forced to turn away after being stung. Nancy swims underwater to the buoy's chain and starts climbing. The shark attacks again, and in the chaos, one metal rod breaks. Nancy falls directly onto the shark, stabbing it with the broken rod before pulling herself back onto the buoy. Furious, the shark begins slamming into the buoy. Nancy spots a distant cargo ship and fires the buoy's flare gun, but the ship has already turned away and never sees her. The shark keeps attacking. Nancy then notices oil leaking from the dead whale nearby. As the shark swims through the oil toward her, she fires another flare into the water, igniting the oil and setting the shark on fire. The flames die when it dives, but the shark becomes uncontrollable and drags the buoy underwater. Nancy slips between the metal supports of the buoy for protection. Then she notices the buoy is held by a chain connected to a sharp metal anchor at the bottom. She dives down and begins pulling the chain. The bolts are already loose. At the same time, one of the shark's teeth is stuck in the buoy. With everything she has left, Nancy tears the chain free. The heavy chain sinks fast. The shark chases her, and just before she hits the sharp metal structure below, Nancy lets go and moves aside. The shark cannot turn in time and crashes directly into the massive metal rods, which pierce through its body and kill it. The next time we see Nancy, she is finally safe on the beach. Help has arrived because the camera with her message floated ashore. A child found it and brought his father to rescue her. Through pure determination and refusing to quit, Nancy survives. The film ends there. The movie was released in 2016, holds an IMDb rating of 6.3, was made on a budget of about $17 to $25 million, and earned $119 million worldwide.